Class is in session. This is Professor Bill Landis. Jeremy Birmingham and me, Austin Ward, we're out of here. We don't have anything to add. This is just Bill on the offensive line on Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Byers Auto. We'll see you guys later.
I feel like I didn't study enough because I didn't get to talk to everybody.
Oh, you didn't study enough?
No. Well, there were Justin Frye was out here, and 6 or 7 players were out here, and I get to talk to 4 of them. I didn't get to talk to all of them. Was Luke Montgomery?
He was out there, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get.
And he said he's repping all at guard. So
I didn't hear a word he said.
That's some information that you probably needed, and I'll give it to you right now.
Yeah, and also, Josh Fryer said he's playing some guard, but not that much guard. He's a tackle. So which I think we knew, but it was nice to hear from him that I don't. As much as Ryan Day says, we're moving guys around, I don't really get the impression that they are moving guys around all that much. So
I don't know why they keep bringing it up, because Luke Montgomery was the one who was just no, I'm all guard.
Yeah, I guess you leave the door open in case you come out of spring not feeling great. But I also didn't get that impression from talking with Justin Frye today. He seems, one, I think pretty content with where things are and where they're headed, and 2, I think not in a super rush to be in a position to declare the starting 5 at the end of spring either. Obviously, if some guys leave, then that changes the math, I guess, and then you can do it. But I think they very much want some of the competitive nature of this position group to carry forward into the summer, which is to say, I don't think we're going to get a press release on April 14th that says, here are our 5 offensive line starters.
You just aren't going to have all the answers today. It's April 1st. I mean, I watched as Luke Montgomery was walking away, other people in the gathered media tried to pull him aside and get some real scoop, so are you the starter? And Luke was like, I can't think about what happens 6 months from now. I don't even know what's happening tomorrow. I don't think that this is a situation where we can all have a fairly good, I think, guess of how this is going to shake out. But it is just a guess because anything can happen. We're still at practice 9 of the spring. There's a lot of things that will go down from here. But it seems like there is that group now. And I think Carson Hinsman and Seth McLaughlin, I'm kind of viewing as one person right now. There's the 4, and then there's that spot where those 2, I think, are in a real battle. I'm not sure that there's a battle anywhere else.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. That maybe the tidbits about Josh Fryer, maybe he might get a couple reps at guard or rotate a little bit. Maybe that's to distract us from the center battle.
Maybe. And also, I think maybe it helps Josh Fryer to throw some versatility out there, even if it's just words, and we don't ever get to see it with our own eyeballs. But it does feel like that center is maybe more of a competition than I would have assumed. It's kind of similar to quarterback, I guess. They bring in somebody, you assume that guy's going to be the starter. It's the guy who started last year or played last year is also good and growing and getting better. So I think that'll carry through. I'm not putting words in Carson Hinsman's mouth, but we all know the trajectory that he's on, right? He got benched at the end of last season, and they brought in somebody ostensibly over him to play the position. If he felt some type of way about that, I wouldn't necessarily blame him, but I hope that he is here in the summer to keep that competition rolling, because I think that gets you the best version of this offensive line, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, it didn't seem to me like he was in some do or die, must win this job immediately situation. And a lot of those guys talked about it. And again, it's one thing to say it when you're in the middle of spring camp and you are fully committed to the process and seeing it all through. Justin Frye talked about this, whether that was George Fitzpatrick or Tegra Shabola, it's you're into year 3. You'd still potentially have 2 more years to make this work. Or you may only need 1 year of a starting experience at Ohio State to propel yourself into an early round NFL draft pick. And I know that college football has become wildly impatient with every part of it. Coaches, current players, recruits, all of it is immediate. But offensive line is still a position that requires multiple years of development to play it at a high level. And I think, Bill, you may have asked Carson Hinsman this directly. He was was that probably too early for you last year? And I think everybody can pretty much agree that, at center especially it was.
It definitely was. And Luke Whippler was in I think the exact same position, right? He had not played prior to 2021 when they made him the starter unexpectedly. So it's not to say that, it's an impossible task, but it's probably more likely to look like what Carson Hinsman's first season looked like than what Luke Whippler's first season looked like. So in some respects, it's understandable that he had an up and down year and kind of tailed off at the end, especially as an undersized guy who I think has struggled a little bit to keep his weight and his strength at where it needs to be consistent.
Whippler played inside in high school. Carson
did not. Yeah. So there's a lot of variables there. I think the only thing for Carson Hinsman is you have to then take that and take the I don't know, what was probably a pretty difficult pill to swallow of not playing in the bowl game and try to get better from it. And it does seem like he has that mindset. I ultimately do not know where that's going to lead him, but he seems like he believes he's better off for having gone through what was definitely an up and down year.
That's why guys come to Ohio State. I mean, I know that it is one of those cliches, but you don't come here and expect to play as a true freshman or a redshirt freshman on the offensive line. Like you hope to, but I mean, talking to Luke Montgomery today, like he was talking about Deontay Armstrong and Devontae Armstrong and Ian Moore. Like he's like, those guys have already hit the wall. Yeah. Like it comes on you fast when you're here and you are used to being the biggest, most explosive, most dominant guy in your school and high school. And then you get to college and it's like, I'm just another guy here. And then you have to elevate yourself in a much different way. And it's not just the physical growth, but Justin Frye talked about that. Like going from being a 17-year-old to an 18-year-old to a 19-year-old, like your body goes through a huge transformation. And then
this is another class over here.
Yeah, this is anatomy. This is an offensive line. So what happens is, as you get older, you get bigger, and you also get
what triggers that? Presumptively
smarter and wiser. And I think what you're seeing out of Carson Hinsman is just an understanding of his situation. Like that.
Yes.
We can't stand back and look at it last year and go, well, he shouldn't be playing. It's too early, because he is the guy they put out there. But I think if you can take a step back 6 months later and go, well, probably was too early. And the staff recognizes that clearly. And as long as he does, then there is no reason for him to be 1 foot out the door or anything like that, which again is what I think people just assume, because as you said, everyone's so damn impatient now.
Well, I think if we're going to go back and use a little bit of a hindsight on that, we were talking about it in November in real time. Like there were things that they could have done to help Carson Hinsman, which is the move that they made with Matthew Jones to center. They were considering that in November. They tried it in the Cotton Bowl. Certainly didn't work in that game itself. And I think, I don't know, maybe they felt like those reps that he was getting in games, which like at Notre Dame thought there was no issues with that, is on the road. Like he went most of the season. It's like there's no snap issues for us to really count on. It's like, well, maybe you don't have to make this move because he's already got a body of work that seems like it's ahead of schedule, and he's going to keep developing. But he hit that wall that you're talking about, Berm, at a different time than maybe a true freshman in a spring practice or whatever. And like that was the period where I thought Ohio State could have helped him through that, because I'm not a psychologist. I don't know.
That's a different class.
That's a different class. It'd be the third one, and I'm definitely not
really loading up this.
Not a professor on that, but like
course schedule.
If it became more difficult for him to fight through that, I thought perhaps there was something that Ohio State could have done with the lineup to assist him. Maybe that would have made it worse. Maybe there was no good option. They had already gone far enough down that road. He's just the starter and let him go. I really don't know.
They could have also went and tried to find a center who could play here instead of bringing in Vic Cutler, right? Like they go all the way back to the beginning. Like redshirt freshman Carson Hinsman did not have to start last year, but Ohio State chose to build its roster in a way that kind of forced him into the position. So it's not merely on him. And like he had some good moments last year. It just kind of tapered off at the end, unfortunately. But I don't know. I kind of buy from him just from talking to him, because I don't think he's like a BSer either. Like I think if he were feeling down about
his situation. He's pretty famously not.
Yeah, I think if he were down about his situation, we'd be able to pick up on that. And I didn't. So I kind of buy that he's in a better place. And I still think Seth McLaughlin's going to be the starting center, but I think Carson Hinsman is a better football player now than he was at this point a year ago.
Yeah, we've pretty much got to that point already. I was going to say true or false that the starting offensive line is going to be Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, Luke Montgomery, and Josh Frye. Like that seems to me the way this is going.
I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't that. I think the only thing that changes that is if they decide to bring somebody in after the spring, which doesn't seem likely to happen, unless like a Caleb Downs type of offensive lineman.
What if Caden Proctor wants to transfer again?
Wants to transfer for a third time, like something like that, where it's just like this person's a great football player and he wants to come here. We have to take him, but I don't even know who that would be at this point. So yeah, that would be my bet for the starting five for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, unless Caden Proctor's fourth opportunity to be a Buckeye comes around and he decides to jump on it. I don't know that there's anybody. I'm sure there's a tackle out there somewhere that you can look at and be like, that guy might be an upgrade, but I don't know that those guys are in situations where they're looking to leave. You're going to take the same risk if you find a multiple-year starting tackle at a mid-major and say, well, now he's going to come to Ohio State in May. I mean, the Josh Simmons experiment has turned out fairly well, but there was certainly some hiccups, and I don't think that's the tact you want to, take every year. That seems silly.
Yeah. Anything else you take away from this, Bill?
Like Josh Frye talking about like last year not being, I think you asked him, like not being up to the standard that he wanted to play at, which I think was clear. Again, another guy who I don't think the total body of work was bad, but the bad moments tend to get magnified a little bit, which I think you've mentioned before. It's like he didn't give up a ton of pressures, but like every pressure turned into a sack, which is not always on the offensive lineman, but clearly he has to get better. And he said feels like he's thinking less, playing more off of reaction, and I think maybe just seeing things a little bit better. And like when we were out here watching practice the other day, again, I didn't have the best vantage point to watch every single one of Josh Frye's snaps, but I do think it would have been noticeable like if he was getting whipped on every play too, and that didn't seem to be happening either. So again, another guy who seems to be in a better place. Like there's a lot of like benefit of the doubt that I think Ohio State is asking for with the offensive line that I'm not entirely sure that it deserves, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be bad next year. It just means like you got to have to wait and see, which I know is a hard position for all of us to kind of be in, but I just think that's kind of the way of things right now.
Am I alone in thinking Josh Frye looked leaner?
I thought he looked thicker, actually. I went the other way, and I asked him about that.
I thought he looked more narrow.
More carved up?
More carved up slab of beef.
I think
I thought he was wider last year. He looks less wide.
Today, I thought he was the widest he's ever been.
Really?
So I walked.
What a compliment.
I don't know, and I said that to him when he sat down.
I think Luke Montgomery looked the widest he's ever been.
I wonder how.
Let's rank them all by
width.
How wide.
I wonder how he got to this point.
In order of width.
I walked over to the table with Josh Frye, and I was like, "Well, you're looking larger," and he was like, "Thank you." And I guess that's the only way you can respond to that.
Maybe looking smaller.
Oh,
that could be it. Your perspective is different.
I hadn't considered that. I'm definitely leaner, but he
less wide.
As they say.
Width has been reduced, but the upper body, like especially his arms, looked Donovan Jackson-esque. And
isn't life funny how we can all see the same thing and all see it so differently?
I think
America, I think it's important to realize that all of us,
but not.
I was doing your PSA.
Smaller, right?
Oh, you want to talk football? Keep going.
No, do your PSA.
No, I mean it's fine. No, they don't need to hear from me.
America needs to hear it.
They don't need to hear about how it's important that we all find a way to just love one another.
Oh, that's where you were going with that?
And you should have kept talking about it.
And be more good to each other. Be good to each other. That's my message.
That's counter for real.
On this, the holiest of days.
The holiest of days.
Offensive line day.
Yes.
You were at Luke Montgomery for a long time, or for most of his time there.
Yeah.
I wasn't there at all. Like, is he like feel like he's in a good spot?
He's a player that he was talking about how like last year there were moments when he really just felt like he had no idea what he was doing. And he said that I
bet that was fun.
He said he's past that. He said he's mentally much, much clearer than he's been and feels better than he has in a long time physically. And I think for so many of these guys, and this goes back to the point with Carson Insman, there is a plan when new players arrive at Ohio State. And the plan from the Ohio State coaching perspective and Coach Mick Marotti and the strength and conditioning point of view is we are going to break you down until you quit or you don't. And once a player decides I'm not going to quit, then it becomes like smooth sailing pretty much from there. And I think Luke Montgomery is just at a point now where he's on the other side of that mountain and you can see the weight was off, but he was very clear that he's not thinking about being the starter. He's thinking, how do I get better today? Justin Frye said he makes mistakes every single day and he learns from them. He's extremely cerebral. Like he's what you want. I asked him if he felt more passionate about playing guard now than maybe he thought he would before Chip Kelly arrived, because of how Chip Kelly's offensive line really utilizes his athleticism in that spot. And his eyes kind of got a little glowy, like you could tell he didn't want to say that too much, but like I could tell he was thinking yes in that way. So
I tried to ask Justin Frye that and he didn't answer it. He was just like, everyone's getting better. Like, all right.
Did you ask him why they keep putting Tegra Shabola at tackle? Because I missed.
No, I didn't get a chance to ask that either. I also didn't get a chance to talk to Tegra, unfortunately. There's a lot going on.
I did not.
Did talk to George Fitzpatrick though. He's a guy who I think is in a position you're talking about. Now it's taken him 3 years to get there, but he like kind of feels like he has his feet under him, where he needs to be finally physically. And it does feel like he's making a little bit of a push. Like he wants to show them that he can be one of the five. I don't think that's going to happen. But if he can be the sixth, right, or the seventh, or like your next tackle into the game, and you believe in him, like that would be a tremendous opportunity for George Fitzpatrick, who then beyond this year, I believe would still have like 2 more years to step up and be a starter next year when Fryer's gone and maybe Simmons is gone too. So
I asked George if he thinks or if he agrees with my take that the offensive line here is too neatly groomed. And I don't think I miss.
Frye had a nice beard going.
Yeah, but Josh Frye is the closest one to being a slob in the old slob days of the Norwells and
that is a compliment here.
Both of you are peppering him with backhanded compliments.
I mean, it's a compliment. I missed those slob days, and George said he was going to skip the shower today in order to be a little bit more slovenly.
I don't know if that's accomplishing the goal.
That's what he said.
I don't think like George Fitzpatrick is babyface. I don't know that he can grow a beard.
So-
Luke Montgomery doesn't look like he can grow a beard.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if George's girlfriend happens to watch this show and he smells, that's because of me.
That's Berm's fault.
You are welcome.
I'm not sure that's how she'll take it. Anyway, offensive line class dismissed for now. We'll still probably have a lot more to talk about as the final 2 weeks of Ohio State spring camp are underway. Thanks for joining us on Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Byers Auto. That is Professor Bill Landis. This is Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you all later.